Well, hey there, Robin.
Hello.
Hi. Last week, we explored what happens when you grow up being the emotional grown up too early, always knowing how to soothe others, but never being soothed yourself. And today, we're expanding on that through the lens of sensory and emotional safety. Because for a lot of us, especially those who are neurodivergent, highly sensitive, or emotionally attuned, our sensitivity was something we had to hide early on. We learned to turn it down, tuck it away, mask it, until we barely recognized our own reactions because it wasn't safe. Our sensory and emotional needs weren't just misunderstood, they were often dismissed, punished, or seen as a burden that shaped everything. How we relate to our bodies, how we communicate, how we disconnect from ourselves just to stay connected to others. So if you grew up being told you were too much, or too sensitive, or too dramatic, this one is for you.
Wherever you are, however you are, you're not too much here. Let this be a soft moment of return. This is also for the ones who felt everything all the time, and no one ever told them that that was some kind of wisdom. Let your body settle if that feels okay. Or shift, fidget, stim, rock, pause. You don't have to be still to be present. This episode is especially for the ones who were punished for crying, the ones who were told to toughen up, the ones who flinched at loud voices or bright lights and didn't know why, the ones who sensed everyone's emotions but didn't know what to do with their own, the ones just now discovering the term HSP and feeling a light bulb go off. We see you. You were never too much, and your sensitivity was never the problem. It was the signal. And in a safe environment, sensitivity can now become your superpower.
Let's start with this. What happens when your emotions and sensations are dismissed from a young age? Well, you stop trusting them. You stop listening to your body's cues. And that loss of self-trust is at the root of so much disconnection.
Right? I think about how so many of us had our hunger cues ignored. You had to finish your plate even when you were full. You were punished for not eating fast enough or forced to eat things that made you gag. You were spanked or shamed for needing a break or for feeling overwhelmed. And that early pattern of override, it doesn't just affect food, it affects everything. You learn to override your tiredness. You smile even when you're scared. You stay quiet when you need connection. You sit still when your body is screaming to move. And you learn to ignore the buzzing lights or itchy clothes like your body is shouting, in a language no one ever really taught you to understand. And if you're a highly sensitive person, that kind of sensory overload wasn't just uncomfortable, it was really unbearable. You learn to bear it anyway, because at that time, there was no other option.
For those of us who were emotionally in tune or neurodivergent, masking literally became a survival tool. We learned what to say, what not to say, how to shrink, shapeshift, smile, nod. We became performers in our own lives, reading the room, adjusting constantly, trying not to get it wrong.
Mm-hmm. And it worked until it didn't, right? Because eventually your nervous system starts to send up those flares and it's not sustainable. And so we have that burnout, that shutdown, sensory overload, those emotional outbursts. And that can surprise even you. And all those signs are signs that your system has really been performing safety for too long without actually feeling it. It's kind of like outsourcing it.
Right. And the body's over there, saying, you can't keep pretending forever. And underneath the pretending, there's often grief for all the times you couldn't just be. Today's nugget is this. It's our nervous system nugget for the week. Masking isn't the same as regulation. When we mask, we're often dissociating from our true needs to meet external expectations. It might look like being regulated on the outside, like somebody that's calm or cool, smooth, collected, but inside we're bracing, monitoring, shutting down, like a student sitting quietly in class while mentally checking out, or a kid nodding along to avoid punishment.
It's like a calm surface over choppy water. Masking might keep us safe in unsafe environments, but it also keeps us from ourselves, from knowing what we like, from trusting what we feel, from sensing what we need, knowing our own blueprint. And so healing begins when we start asking, what am I actually feeling right now? Is this reaction mine, or is it a survival pattern? Even that awareness can feel so vulnerable because it's where the reconnection starts. And it's what begins to bridge the gap from that survival to safety.
I appreciate you saying that. I feel like many of us, that blueprint, even I've been using this terminology recently with people, that we are often given a roadmap or a blueprint for survival instead of safety. And it feels really difficult to try to navigate that, especially if, you perceive other people doing it better or somehow just winning when you're not.
Yeah. I think it's so important to know our own blueprint before we give it to somebody else, in a sense. And I say that in session, and I hope I haven't said that in any episodes before. But I do feel it's really important. We get to rediscover our own blueprint, and then we get to then share it as we see fit.
Exactly. Let's talk about what starts to shift when you begin unmasking. It can feel awkward, exposed, tender. You're noticing your actual preferences, your actual energy limits, your actual rhythms.
I remember the first time I really was able to say out loud, I need quiet. Not because something was wrong, just because I was melting down, and I knew that I just needed that quiet away, and my body just sort of fluttered, like it didn't know if it was safe to admit it. It's almost like that landing, my chest fluttered, wasn't sure it was allowed. And instead of running from it, I tuned into it. It was allowed, and something shifted. My breath came back into my body, my jaw unclenched. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was bracing for the after effect or the what if.
Right. It's like a car crash that's not going to happen, but you're walking around on edge.
Mm-hmm.
Those micro moments of unmasking that help rebuild self-trust. And it's like taking pain basically in small doses instead of drinking from a fire hose, which feels overwhelming and, it makes us not want to do this stuff. So notice that you can practice saying no and how your body didn't collapse. Maybe you leave a party early and your nervous system exhales. You ask for what you need, even if your voice shakes.
And maybe you realize I'm sensitive, and that's not a flaw. Maybe you're just now realizing you're that highly sensitive person, and the depth you've always felt isn't something to fix. It's something to really finally care for. And in fact, it might be the source of your depth, your creativity, your intuition. But it can only bloom when it feels safe. You can really only unfold when you do feel safe. And that's really what we're learning to give ourselves.
And if you're Gen X or older, you might just be realizing all this now. Because for so many of us, sensitivity was never named, never seen as a strength. It was always a weakness. We were told to, buck up, be grateful, not confused, don't be curious, not emotional. This is all inconvenient. So this unmasking process isn't just healing, it's revolutionary.
A friend of mine recently shared a win. She said, I wore headphones in the grocery store for the first time and didn't feel weird about it. And I know we point out the rewires here a lot in our podcast, but that's also a rewire right there. That's it. Noticing a need, honoring it, letting it be quote unquote normal, adapting to it instead of feeling like you need to fix it. Because before, she used to feel really anxious. Like people would judge her or think she was rude, and her chest would just tighten, her breath would shallow, and brain would just be buzzing with that need to act normal and that fight against that need, but something shifted now and there's calm instead of bracing, and she can go to the grocery store and feel okay and just bring those headphones. And now it's care. Her vagus nerve was online. Her body stopped scanning for threat. Her jaw unclenched, her breath deepened, and in that moment, her nervous system really believed, I'm allowed to be here.
Not hiding, not apologizing. Because when we're sensitive, honoring our needs is the nervous system regulation. It's the opposite of what masking taught us to do. And sometimes the biggest rewires are the ones no one sees. Okay, so here's today's tool, the undone minute.
Yes, this is especially for folks who are always performing or producing. I want you to set a timer for 1 minute, then do something completely unstructured. You could hum, sway, stim, lie down, doodle, stretch, rock. Something your body wants to do, not something you think you should do.
The point is, let yourself exist without expectation. Let yourself come undone just for a moment. It's not just about movement. It's about meeting yourself with no performance, no productivity, just presence. That's how we start peeling back the mask, bit by bit, like letting your shoulders drop after carrying a heavy bag all day. You don't realize how much you're holding until you finally set it down. And even if that feels hard, just start with 10 seconds. Even that is an act of healing. And remember, repetition. That's what we're after, is repetition.
Here is a weekly reflection question. What sensory or emotional need have you been ignoring, and what might it look like to honor it for 60 seconds? Even something small, like lowering the volume, taking off your shoes, or taking a breath. All that counts. Don't put it off. You're worthy of it.
Next week, we're shifting into something that feels like the natural next step. We'll be exploring how to repair the relationship with yourself, because so much of this work starts there. Noticing yourself, trusting yourself, and learning how to hold space for you. That one is called repairing the relationship with self. And it's foundational to the reparenting process. And remember, healing isn't linear, and we're here for the ride. Thanks for sitting with us today. If something resonated, we'd love it if you shared the episode, left a review, or connected with us on social. We're two therapists walk into a podcast on most platforms. You can listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not therapy, does not replace therapy, and does not establish a therapist-client relationship. If you're in crisis, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional or call 988 in the U.S. Robin Green is a licensed therapist in Arizona, and Stephanie Edsall is licensed in Utah. But this podcast is intended for a general audience.